My name is Joe Prony, and this is the Rise Above Project. And today I thought I would do a reaction and an assessment on a video that I found on this YouTube channel called Valuetainment Short Clips. What I've noticed is the person who runs this YouTube channel has multiple YouTube channels. And he's very successful. He has over 3.2 million subscribers. And on a personal level, they say he's worth over $150 million. So you could say that he's a winner on YouTube, and he's definitely a winner in capitalism, no doubt about that. The two major questions that they're trying to answer here is, number one, are men broke and alone these days? We're talking about younger men. And number two, they're asking the question, are more women attending college than men? Is that creating the next, what they call, mating crisis? Now, again, I wanted to do just a reaction video on this, but just watching this for the first 5 minutes, I had to start over. I can't do that. And the reason for that is because there's so many lies and there's so much misinformation. And they also go off the rails, and they're not actually answering, the questions directly. So it's going to become unlistenable and unwatchable if I have to start and stop this every 10 seconds to go over some information. So I've decided to handle it like this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to answer those questions up front with some facts. And then I'm going to resort to a fact sheet before we start the video. And then we'll be able to refer to that as we go along. And of course, I'll have some more commentary along the way. But I've tried this, and it was an impossible task to do this. Now, so you know, because you can't see it and I can, but there's 4 men that in this interview or discussion about this subject. And let's just take it from there. So I am going to start answering the question, are men broke and alone? Let's start off with a couple of facts. Number one, the amount of men 30 years old and under not having sex has tripled in the last decade. Let that sink in. Fact number two, 28% of 30-year-old men reported not having sex since they were 18 years old. Now, as we look at this, there are more male virgins now than women. We could get into all the stuff about it, but let's just take a look at that. There's something developmentally wrong here, right? So let's start with that. Let's go with fact number 3. Women in the 18 to 29-year-old age group make more money than men in the same age group. Continuing, fourth fact, in the 25 to 34-year-old age group, about 19% of men live with their parents, and only about 9.7% of women live with their parents. So can we say men are broke and alone? I don't think you can say that, but I think what you can say is that in normal development, yes, people seek out other people, especially men. And it's since the beginning of humankind, I don't know if there's that many 30-year-old male virgins out there that literally have said they haven't had sex in 12 years at 30 years old. This is unheard of territory. I believe you can say that many men are definitely alone. We can say that, through choice or not. And we all know about this MGTOW, men going their own way. To me, it sounds like a lot of sour grapes, right? Like they can't get girls, so they say, I don't want girls anyway, right? Because it's not normal development for young men with testosterone going through the roof just to deny themselves any type of human contact. Can we say that they're broke? Not really. But we can say that almost 1 out of 5 men up to 34 years old still live at home. Now, I don't know if they're saving money, but in terms of society and trying to get girls and trying to have a family, can we say that they're broke? Maybe. And maybe not just financially, because women at that age are making more money than them. So are they broke? You can't say that. But what you can say is that women, most of the time, not all the time, most of the time, they prefer ambitious men. And they prefer a man who has a good chance of being able to be a good protector and provider as time goes on. And they want them to be a good father. So if a woman is making more money than a man, the chances of her looking at him as a long-term prospect go down. And there's not that many women in their 30s looking at a 30-year-old man who still lives at home and thinking he's a catch. So again, is it possible to say that they're broke financially compared to women, especially the way they're going to be treated because they can't handle a family? Yeah, we can say that. Are they psychologically and emotionally broken? Again, possibly. I mean, in terms of human development, is it normal for 30-year-old men to be living with their parents? So it is possible to say all of this. So that's answering the first two questions. Are these four men with this interview actually going to address that correctly? No, and that's why I have to bring it up. So let's also look at the fact sheet. Again, we're going to be talking about college enrollment, and it is true that in terms of enrollment, it's about 60% women and 40% men. So the question becomes, does higher education lend to higher income level? Because they're going to deny that it does. So let's talk about facts. If you have a doctorate, typically, on average, you're going to make about $100,000 or more. If you have a master's degree, you're looking at between $75,000 to $90,000 or more. Bachelor of Science degree, $65,000 or more. Associate's degree, which is 2 years, you're looking at about $46,000. Now, if you only have a high school diploma, you're looking at about $38,000 or less. If you don't have a high school diploma, you're looking at about $30,000 or less. Now, if you don't have any college at all, you're much, much more likely to be unemployed. Continuing. If you have a master's degree over a period of a lifetime, on average, you will make $1.5 million more than a person who only has a high school diploma. If you have a Bachelor of Science degree, lifetime, you'll make about $900,000 more than somebody with only a high school diploma. So we can see beyond a shadow of a doubt that an education is still a very, very valuable asset. These guys are going to deny that, and this is why I need to put this up front. People are going to say, too, that it's just not that valuable anymore. And again, they're going to keep pushing this. But let's pull this up to date here. In the year 2018, 91% of new jobs created or were younger people were replacing somebody in the boomer generation. Those new jobs went to those people who had a Bachelor of Science degree. It's worth saying again, 91%. Now, in the year 2020, 65% of jobs require a college education. So you don't have to go to college, you don't have to have a trade, you don't have to have a skill, but you are really putting yourself behind an 8 ball here. Let's continue, because they're going to say women go to college more than men because they like to take gender studies and things like basket weaving. So not that we need to say this, but they always seem to go to the basket weaving. There are no such thing as basket weaving majors in college. So ridiculous argument, let's throw it out. Let's go with some of the other facts about women only taking gender studies. Fact number 1, there are more women in medical school than men. Fact 2, there are more women in law school than men. Kind of destroys their argument, right? Fact 3, gender studies is the 30th most popular major for women. So it's not really an issue. But a lot of the women who do take gender studies as a major move on to law school. So it is helpful. And if you just stay with the gender studies degree, they make about an average of $60,000 to $75,000 a year, which is certainly something to be proud of. Now let's take a look at the top 5 majors for women. Number 1, nursing. Number 2, psychology. Number 3, business. 4, biology. 5, accounting. While it is true that more women than men take nursing and psychology, what is also true is that business, biology, and accounting, those 3 are in the top 5 for men and women. So again, their comment that women only go to school to take ridiculous majors that don't pay anything is insane. It doesn't make any sense at all. So why they're saying it, other than they have their own ideology and they don't want to look at any facts, that's their own problem. The other big question that comes up is, are men on average dropping out of college, or are they less likely to attend college than in the past? So they're going to bring up a graph. And I don't know if it's their lack of education, but they're going to bring up the same graph that I have, and they don't know how to read it. So let's go over this really quick so we don't get too into the numbers, and I already have, but still. So in 1970, 14.1% of men had a 4-year degree, and only 8.2% of women had a 4-year degree in 1970. So men were much more likely to go to school. Let's fast forward to 2020. 36.7% of men have a 4-year college degree, which is obviously a lot more than 14.1. So are men dropping out of college? No, they're attending college more. So that's a whole big lie. Now, during the pandemic, it's true that men and women have gone to school less, but that's because of the pandemic. It's not because college is somehow not valuable. On the other hand, though, in the year 2020, 38.3% of women have a 4-year college degree. So what does that mean? Not only have women increased the amount of college degrees and education over the last 50 years, more women have college degrees than men. It is in that gap where the problem exists. Because again, women tend to want to date or marry somebody who's within their economic bracket or within their educational bracket. So it's within that group that creates a bunch of angry men. It's not that men dropped out of college. Now you're going to see people like this who have 3.2 million subscribers. What they're going to do is say school is stupid, you don't really need it. And I've seen a bunch of these channels on men's rights activist channels and everything else. They say that school is worthless. It's not that men are going to school less. They're going to school more, just not as much as women. And again, it's that gap that's creating what they call the mating crisis. So let's try to do this. We're already, we're 13 minutes in. And let's see what these very intelligent, very rich men have to say. Let me start that over here. I'm going to go a little bit higher on the volume so we can all hear that. We'll do that. And we'll turn up the volume there.
So this got to be a very weird.
And here we go.
An NYU professor says fewer men going to college will lead to a mating crisis, with the U.S. producing too many broke and alone men.
We've discussed that.
This professor says. Let's see where he's going with this, because the numbers are pretty staggering when you look at the graduating class. This is an insider story. Fewer men than women are attending college, which is leading to a mating crisis. The New York professor Scott Galloway said women made up 59.5% of college students at the end of 2021 school year. That's 60%, an all-time high. With a comparison to 40% of men enrolled in college. But Galloway warned that beyond the classroom, the gap is causing an existential threat to society, and that we are creating a dangerous cohort. We have mating inequality in the country, he said, adding that women with college degrees don't want to partner with men who don't hold a college degree. Wait, let me read that one more time.
He's going to read it 3 times.
That women with college degrees don't want to partner with men. Women with college degrees don't want to partner with men who don't have a college degree. The most dangerous person in the world is a broke and alone male, and we are producing too many of them, he said. Do you agree with them?
So the issue I have with the college thing, right, is talking about a bunch of bullshit.
Okay, let's start here because he's not going to answer the question off the top. And he's going to go on this diatribe. We're going to get to it. The question posed here is, are broken alone men dangerous? Let's take a look at that. Yes, that's the answer. Typically, men who are broke, men who are alone, men who are underpaid, men who can't get laid, throughout the whole history of society, in every society, they've been more prone to kill and hurt others and to kill and hurt themselves. They're more prone to go to jail. They're more prone to be obviously violent. They're more prone to every type of addiction. As a matter of fact, the FBI has deemed that the most dangerous threat to the United States is domestically. And this is radicalized white men they feel marginalized. They feel socially alienated, which is another nice way of saying women reject them and bosses reject them. Because of why? Because of their lack of education and skill and desire to be more than what they are. So they do become violent. This guy's going to pass right over that, but this is very, very important that yes, broke and alone men are dangerous by percentage. Let's continue. Let's see what this genius has to say.
Bullshit. This dude, first of all, the reason why these women at NYU don't want to have kids is because the college professors are telling them that their job is more important than anything that they're going to do with the family.
Okay, this guy makes my brain hurt. First thing off the top of his head, listen, no woman is deciding not to have children because a college professor told them not to, right? College professors don't tell them that their job or their career is more important than having a family. That's never been said. As a matter of fact, if you're a woman and you're in college, you've already made the decision that you want to get a college degree. Why? Probably so you could support yourself and help support a family. This guy doesn't even know what college is. Let's continue. Let's see what other smart things this guy has to say.
Brainwashed an entire generation into thinking these women have to have a career or a family, that they somehow can't have a career and a family. That's number one.
Again, second sentence. Women aren't going to college to be brainwashed into having a career instead of a family. That's ridiculous. I don't know where this guy gets this. Let's continue.
Number two, this idea that because you don't go to college, you're somehow going to end up broke and alone. Like truckers aren't making $250 grand a year. Like soldiers aren't out there getting laid. Like plumbers aren't out there with mansions. Dude, this is the biggest, the higher education, upper echelon education in America is maybe the biggest issue in our entire culture. Because all they do is funnel ideology, and it's nonstop social pressure. Come to college, do what we tell you to do, fit in, do anything that we say, otherwise your life is, women aren't going to like you. Nope.
Okay. Yeah, we've already shown this, that men at that age group, they pretty much are broken alone, and that's why you get a lot of these angry men. Nobody's saying, again, this is a straw man argument that a lot of conservative men use. Nobody's saying that truckers don't make money. We know this. Nobody's saying that plumbers, even welders, electricians, people in construction, nobody said that. Trades are a very good thing to have, very valuable. We need those. That's a straw man argument. Nobody has ever said that trades are not good and not valuable for society. We've all said that. Then he says, too, he uses as a barometer of success. Well, soldiers get laid. Nobody said that they don't. And if you want to use that as a barometer, to be able to get your nice uniform so you can get laid that way. Listen, I do a lot of therapy on people that live in trailer parks. I do a lot of therapy on people who are basically homeless. They get laid on a regular basis, too. So let's not put that in there as something like, oh, you could be a soldier and get laid. Like that makes no sense and should not be part of any intellectual discussion whatsoever. Now he talks about, too, that schools only teach an ideology. Ideology is a system of ideas, usually political. Now, if you're taking political science, of course they're going to talk about politics. But if you're like me and you take exercise physiology, which was my first degree, they don't talk politics. They're not talking politics if you're in the medical field or accounting. I don't know what this guy's talking about. What is true, though, is that the more educated you get, the more liberal you get. There's a definite correlation between intelligence and being liberal. I'm sorry about that, but it's true. And to, further make a lot of these guys angry, your IQ is also related to whether you're conservative or liberal. The higher your IQ, there's more chance of you being liberal. So, sorry, guy, but that's kind of the way it is. Let's see what else this genius has to say.
No job's going to hire you. And then those are the same people.
No job is going to hire you. First of all, jobs don't hire you. Employers do that. They hire you for a job. Okay, so he doesn't know how to speak. But besides that, like I said before, about 65 to 91% of jobs that are available, good jobs that are available, go to people with a college degree. It doesn't mean 100%, but it does mean that if you don't have any value, you don't have any skills, you don't have any college education, you don't have a trade, you are really putting yourself in a really difficult position in order to make a living in this world. Let's see what else.
People that turn around and they think communism is the only way because capitalism failed them because some idiot plumber makes more money than they do as a PhD in basket weaving.
There's
It's
the basket
all
weaving
BS.
again.
This guy just exposed everything.
Here's my question.
Higher education.
He exposed himself.
Scott Galloway isn't one of those typical liberal
No, he's
college
not.
professors.
Do you know who Scott Galloway
This
is?
guy,
I don't.
yeah,
I don't.
he's
He's a
coming from
liberal.
America,
No, he's a liberal. Don't get me wrong. He's a liberal, but he's not. He's got very good points he makes. We
love Scott Galloway, guy. Go ahead.
Okay, they don't have anything to say, so they keep using the word liberal like it's a negative, like a person with an education or who has an open mind. Let's keep it real. Conservative, by definition, means that you're aversive to change. You are against anything new and progressive. So you try to stay in old traditional values. Like, it's still better for a lot of these people to ride a horse than it is to go buy a BMW or a Mercedes, right? Like, they're so back in the Stone Age. Let me do this real quick, because a lot of the complaining about men these days, that they're marginalized, throughout the Rust Belt, it's like they don't make any, as much money as they used to. But here's the problem with their own ideology, where they say that they're not into identity politics, but the problem is that they are, because they're not even seeing the real world. They're so enthralled with being tethered to conservatism. They're not looking at that they're causing the problem. So why are men making less money these days? Because idiots like this telling people that they don't need to go to college. That's one. Number two, conservatives for a long time have been trying to break the unions. There's been a long generation of many men who are basically not that educated, that have union jobs, and through collective bargaining have been able to make a lot of money and have a good living. Those don't exist that much anymore. And the reason for that is because of conservatives who complain, but they're the ones who cause the unions to be broken. Now, if you take a look at police and firemen, typically they're these real conservative guys, and they'll wax poetic about conservatism. But the reason why they're making the money they make is because they're in unions. They're literally voting against. It doesn't make any sense. Let's continue. Conservatism has also, because they care mostly about corporations and making money at the top, they offshore a lot of the jobs. So a lot of the jobs for these white men who were uneducated before have gone overseas. And now they're sitting around getting welfare, complaining about minorities getting welfare. So again, it's their issue. They caused it by voting for the people who put their jobs offshore and broke unions. The other thing is the middle-class wages have not gone up since 1973, and that is a real problem. That's one of the reasons why women have to work now, which they hate women working because they'd rather them stay home. But it's their Republican or conservative policies that made it that we haven't had an increase in wages to go with inflation since 1973. Conservatives did that, and yet they're going to continue to vote that way. If you look at where the heroin epidemic is, it's all a lot of areas where people did used to make a lot of money, but all their jobs went offshore or they broke the unions. Listen, we wouldn't even be talking about the heroin epidemic in this country if it really affected minorities. But by a large percentage, it's white people in those areas where they used to have good jobs, even if they weren't educated. So they're causing their own problems. Let's see what else these people have to say.
Yeah, no, he's an intelligent guy. He's a deep thinker. Now, he also knows how to get attention, and this clearly served its purpose because I saw him interviewed on CNN, and they almost treated him like an ally, which I didn't expect to see. You know, the thing that caught my eye, Adam touched on it a little bit, but he equated what's happening as far as the disconnect between the proportion of men and women getting their degrees to what happens in the most violent countries and violent societies, and saying that this is like the worst characteristic you can have because it leads to unbelievable violence.
It does, and it is.
Brought up that was really interesting is the acceptance rates into college. Right, it is so hard for people to get into some of these good colleges right now. When he went to school, he referenced the fact that it was a 70% acceptance rate at UCLA. Now it's 14%. So it's not as easy as just saying, "Hey, I want to do this," because they're going after exceptionalism, and that's what he said. The problem is right now is the colleges are only accepting exceptionalism, and that's going to be a big problem going forward.
Kai, can you see? Go ahead. Before I tell you, give your point.
Yeah.
Kai, can you pull up?
Real quick, nothing wrong with schools looking for exceptionalism. That's number one. And number two, I don't mind this guy because he's kind of posing it as like a question and what he thinks is interesting. Nothing wrong with that. But let's be honest about this. I don't care if some schools cost $1 million to go to. It doesn't matter because no one said you had to go to the top school in the United States, right? You could always start off at community college, which is really cheap, or relatively cheap, and you could start there. It doesn't matter where you start. It matters where you finish. So you can go to the cheapest school in your town or your city. No problem. I did that. A lot of people do that. But your diploma doesn't say that. Your diploma will reflect on the place where you graduated from. So this whole thing that college is so expensive, yeah, it is expensive. There's no doubt, but there's other ways to get through. There's also grants. You don't have to go to the most expensive schools. Let's continue.
Statistic on men or women historically graduating with a 4-year degree. See if you can get like a 50-year number for us to see. Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, I think everyone's made some valid points. I think the most important thing is that we're actually having this discussion. For so long, it was, you have to go to college, you have to do this. There was a blueprint to be successful. Not so true anymore. Now you can go to trade schools and be successful.
Okay, I like where he's starting. He's trying to be a decent guy with not throwing his ideology, but it's actually becoming more and more important that you go to college or you get some type of education, not less. Like I said, again, in 1970, it was like 8% of men went to college. Now you have to go to college or you need some type of skill to really get a job. Why? Because conservatives broke the unions, and there's a lot of other reasons too. But what he's saying here is not true. There are other options. There are always other options. But the options are becoming less, not more. Let's continue.
Successful. You talked about plumbers or truckers, technicians, and HVAC people who can make $100,000 a year.
That's true, and no one ever said that they didn't. I went to a trade school when I was in 11th grade.
The conversation's needed. You talked about Scott Galloway. I believe he's the guy that we read his article a few months ago about graduates need to be warriors, not wokesters. That's the same guy, Kai?
Yes.
Okay, so he's not some woke liberal NYU professor or anything like that.
Let me be clear, that's not what I was saying.
I'm not saying that you were saying that. I'm just saying about him, he's been very vocal of, he does like making
What's
waves.
your point, though? Now give...
Exactly. What's your point?
Conversation is needed. However, let's bring this back. Who is this needed for? 34-year-olds don't need to learn about this because you're already freaking graduated.
We don't need to talk about college because 34-year-olds already graduated. That's true for a lot of people. But if you think that your education needs to stop, you got another thing coming. There's other people coming up the ladder. You need more education. That's number one. Number two, as stated before, and that's why we have to have a fact sheet, about 1 out of 5 men that are 34 years old still live at home. So they need to know the information about college, don't they? I would say that they do. So let's continue.
17 and 18-year-old young men, or even women, need to be paying attention to this. So our younger crowd, our younger audience, needs to understand, all right, this is a perspective. Should I go to college? Should I not go to college?
one of the greatest videos you ever done, Pat, was why college is a scam. Maybe it is. Let me tell you, if I'm going to a college at UCLA and it's a 60-40 ratio of chicks, sign me up, boss.
Yeah, right. That's going to motivate some kids to
Guys,
go
there's
to college.
2 points, just to let me clarify. I'm not anti-education. I am not anti-education, okay? But the idea that college is somehow the only way to get educated...
Nobody ever said that.
Man. All right, Tom,
Well, we all know that.
Do we? Education in America today...
Let's change this a little bit. If you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a lawyer, if you want to be, there's a lot of things you do need in education. What he's messing up here is there's a difference between an education and being credentialed. I learned a lot of stuff. I read a lot of books when I was a kid. You don't need the internet for that. You need a library for that. So the thought that the internet's out there so everybody has access to information is garbage, because we always had the information. It just becomes easier to get now. Because it's easier doesn't mean that you actually know where to look for the information, and you don't necessarily know the right questions to ask in the first place. And typically these days, with the more information that's easy to get, people get more and more unintelligent. Why? Because they have a conclusion in their head and they only look up and read things that confirm what they think they already know. That's why. They're not looking for a critical analysis. They're not looking for people who disagree with them. They're not looking for what we would call a real education. They're only reading the things that satisfy their own weaknesses, their own prejudices. You go to school to be credentialed. It's really important. I read a lot of books, and I could probably have done therapy without actually going to college. That's true. But no, I can't be a practicing mental health clinician without being properly credentialed. And that's the difference. So there's a lot of jobs out there that you need credentials. So this guy, again, is, as usual, 100% wrong.
Exists for 2 things, all right, in my mind. Not to paint with a broad brush. Interesting. To make people obedient, and that's why there's less crime. It's an obedience school. It's a finishing school, okay? Teaches people how to be good employees and, listen to authority. And the other side of it is it sells education, right? Half of the point of education, the only job you can get is to go into education and then sell. It's a giant Ponzi scheme.
But to me, I'm going pure logic.
All right, Mr. Pure Logic, here we go. He is trying to say that school is a negative because it makes people obedient and it leads to less crime. By mistake, he actually gave you another reason why you should be going to college. Why? Because most educated people have more money. They have more options. They're happier, which does lead to less crime. So again, by mistake, he already just gave you another reason to go to school. The other thing he said, it's a big Ponzi scheme. The only reason why you go to college is to be able to educate other people. Well, yeah, if you go to school to be a teacher, and there's nothing wrong with that. We all need more teachers. That's the way of the world. We all want to be a good teacher. There's nothing wrong with that. So again, I don't really know what he's talking about. And it's not that. You go to get a job somewhere, where in accounting, in biology, electrical engineer, I don't care. It's not about you going to school so you can go back to the school to be a teacher, although some people do. That's not really the bulk of why people go to school. This guy's ridiculous.
Okay, let's go pure logic. Set aside the emotion. Look at the stats, guys. Can you guys flip it for the screen to show this chart, please? Okay, and Jorge, do me a favor. Next time, don't put this in here because my leg hits it, especially when we got 4. So if you look at this, it says percentage of U.S. population who have completed 4 years of college or more from...
I already referenced this before, but he's going to look at it totally different.
It was closer. Matter of fact, we were not even going to college 8 years ago. So
that's true.
5.5% of the population male graduated from college, and only 3.8% of women graduated college. So
true.
If you put the two together, 5.5 plus 3.8 is what? 5.3.8 is it 3.8? So 9.3. What's 5.5 divided by 9.3? Do 5.5 divided by 9.3. 55.
So he's going to get into the minutia here
59% men
of the percentages, but he's not really looking at where the problem is.
Blue is male and black is female.
Yeah. So, but go to the separation has been, so don't let the separation look like a big number, because it's still the same ratio. Like 5.5 on 3/8 is the same ratio, but it looks like it's closer.
Makes sense.
We did the same. So the real change happened what year? The real change happened in 08.
2008.
Okay, so what happened in 08? That's all I want to know. I mean, if you go to
Housing
08 and
crisis,
you,
yeah.
is it the housing crisis? But what did the housing crisis
Oh, you know
do?
what? Presidential change. Obama came in.
Okay, so Obama came. and
Obama
was, if you
came
remember,
in
Obama came, Obama
January
said,
20th or 21st, I forgot, in
to
2009, not
decrease
2008.
In, what was he saying? Education, lawyer, go be a teacher, go be a nurse, go be
So
this.
in 08, the gap closed and more people started going to school.
So then Obama encouraged people to get graduates. I mean, college.
But also get something to think about. There was no jobs. The job market sucked. So people were like, "What the hell am I going to do with my
Sure,
life?"
all I'm telling you is
Why?
I'm looking at data right now.
Why was there a
I mean,
depression or a
and they're
recession
gonna lead
through
with-
2007,
okay.
2008?
So why? Let's
Who was the
let's
president?
concentrate on
Who
the
was
same
running
point.
things?
On one end,
Conservatives, but they're not going to say that. They're just going to say there was just this big dip out of nowhere.
Male, female, what year is that? 15, 14. Female took over in 15, 14. Go back
And
to
yes,
15.
Obama did
Even
want
15,
people to
14,
get
14,
educated and go to
women were
college.
ahead
Notice
of men. So
people,
when did the push
everybody,
come to say
the United States
men and women
workforce.
are equal?
But who
When did
did
that
go to
push
college
happen?
more?
That was in the 60s.
Women,
That was
because
in
they're the only one who heard
Okay,
it.
so if you go from 60s, so you got the push from there to when did the push become for women to become executives, entrepreneurs?
Break the
When
glass
did-
ceiling, that
Yeah,
kind of
that
thing.
third
When
wave,
was that?
third wave feminism is early '90s, mid '90s. Third wave feminism.
Would you say third wave feminism?
I'm going to skip past that.
90s?
I should know this. My sister's gonna be so mad at me.
Okay, but whatever the stat may be, there's a reason for this. So it's greater, and then what this leads to, the more independence. I was talking to this guy, Marian Tupi, I think his name is. He wrote this book, 10 Trends to Pay Attention to, and one of the numbers was the
I was having a problem with if I should run this part or not. I'm just going to say it up front. I'm not going to cast dispersions on people here because I don't know them. But they're looking at the chart and they're not looking at the most important things. But what they are going to mention is that this gap, this mating crisis, because more women are more ambitious than men now, they're not saying that men should be more ambitious. They're not saying that men should seek their greatness, their excellence, whatever you want to call it. They're angry at women for going out and working hard. And what they're going to do here, and this is why I had trouble if I was going to put this in the show or not, they are going to put forth the white supremacy or the KKK argument here, is that when you have more women that are caring about their careers, there's a certain percentage that are not going to have children. They're not going to be baby makers. So that is a thing that's been pushed for many, many years, is that you need to keep this process of women having your baby or babies in order to keep that process going, to keep the country white. Now, to be fair, the guy who's saying this now is Iranian, but it doesn't change the principle. That's why when I talk about the important questions here about women going to college, is it causing a crisis for men? He's going to bring it to, why are women working so hard and they're making it so we have less children? Because we need to keep up with the amount of children we have, because we need to keep our population up compared to other countries. So I'm going to run it a little bit, even though I have reservations about this.
The fact that he said by 2100, the world's only got 9 billion people living in, or 7 billion people living in, based on how many kids people are having. So women becoming more career-oriented, when it comes down to a decision. I was talking to a very powerful woman in America, one disclosure.
Anecdotal evidence,
and I said,
one
"Why
story.
don't you have any kids?" She says,
It's not empirical evidence.
And I knew if I would have had kids, I wouldn't be able to compete with men, because I don't want to give up that 90 days and then having to raise a kid and not being able to stay after the office. I want to compete with them. And because of that, I made it to the top of my field and I beat a lot of my male peers. Okay, so now if that competition happens and babies being born per, that number drops to 1.5, 1.4, 1.7.
He's actually caring about how many babies are being born. Like, let me just stop this for a second, because there's another part that needs to be talked about here. When they say that women go to college, and they make the decision if they should have a family or not have a family. through a lot of conservative programs and policies and just society in general, right? It's not all 100% in one direction. But women have to go to work most of the time now. And so they do go to college more. But a lot of the anxiety that women have is because they're doing it all. That's the thing. It's not career or family. It typically is that they need the career. They maybe want it, true, but they also need to do that. And then they want to have a family as well. And on top of that, they come home and they end up doing more of the chores than the men do. So that's what creates a lot of their anxiety. So they're doing it all. Where this guy is kind of waxing poetic about, how other countries have kept women down and they have them not working and they keep them as baby machines and their populations might be rising. Whereas in the United States, it's not. Let's continue.
Increase. So
2.4 kids per family.
2.4
For
kids.
the population to start increasing.
To start increasing. At one point, this is why you look at right now the age, the oldest country in the world from the superpowers is China. 36.8 is the average age. If you want to pull up China's average age,
Because they did the one baby.
because they did the one baby. Now they're back to two babies, by the way, and they're thinking about going to three babies. But you got the China's average age
Because they did the one baby.
because they did the one baby. Now they're back
Okay,
to two
you know
babies,
what?
by the
I'm
way.
just going to stop this here because this garbage bothers me and it really has nothing to do with what they were talking about here. This does not make men better. It does not make men want to go to college. It doesn't really answer any of the questions that they were talking about. Again, they are off on a tangent, on a white supremacy tangent about, oh my God, we're not creating as many babies in the United States. This really is not answering the question. So I'm going to push it up a little bit more forward to see if we can have something else a little bit more important to talk about here. And I'm not good with this computer, but let me see what I can. Let me start it right here.
Is what about the acceptance? You would think the admissions departments of all these major universities would be cognizant of this and try to change the percentage a little bit, admit
I
more
don't think
guys.
it's them, though. I think that's way after. I think they're like step 9.
Okay, then what about the cost and how that's
Okay, this is really interesting too. Listen, conservatives and Republicans have been waxing poetic for years and hating the fact that minorities and women, there's a little push for affirmative action to get people in there, to give them a chance. Now these guys are proponents of affirmative action when it comes to trying to entice more men to go to college. It's insane. It's like, do they really believe what they believe? Only if it serves them. Before, you couldn't get a conservative man ever to say a good word about affirmative action. To say that if somebody came from a poor area, they had less resources, but they work hard, so maybe you should give them a shot at college. Maybe you should give them a shot at a certain job. Maybe put, a minority in the police force. As long as they're, they have the right credentials, but if two people are equal, you probably go with the woman or the minority just to give somebody a push. And that makes sense to a lot of people. I'm not saying yes or no to that, but what I am saying is it's funny how they hate affirmative action, but now that women are making more money than men at a young age, and this looks really bad. In about 10 years, like most of the doctors and lawyers and all the people in power are going to be women. And now they are proponents. They are 100% for affirmative action for men to get into college now. How weird is that? Let's see what else we can do here.
inhibiting this as well. Because there is so much pressure on kids right now to get into the college they want to. It's internal pressure. They're feeling it from their parents, and they are definitely feeling it from their peers.
There's always
it
been
controls
pressure.
Teenagers' lives.
Life
in
is
some
pressure.
communities. It really does.
What,
If you
getting
don't-
accepted to college,
Getting
you're saying?
into the right college,
Gotcha.
their perceived mind.
And you
what
have
the-
one daughter that's graduated college, and
Correct.
Ivana is how old?
She's 15, so she's
15.
a sophomore, kind
And
of in
Dash
that
is
role right
what,
now.
10, 12?
He's 12. Yeah, he's 12 years old.
I really take a lot of umbrage with the fact that this guy somehow equates not going to college with somehow ending up being broke and alone.
Because it's most likely true. That's why. And what happens with a person like this is that they're not pushing other men to do better. Now, the push that women do for other women to do better has sunk in. And you're seeing women with incredible ambition. And no, they don't want to be with guys who are lazy. They don't want to be with guys who are on computers and playing video games all day, smoking marijuana and doing, I mean, all the cliche things that it's such a cliche that people laugh at it. But the point is that it's true. I mean, women want to be with a man. They don't want to have another dependent. That's what a child is. They don't want to have to take over for a guy. I don't know. I don't know what this guy does in his life. Maybe he was lucky and he made it. And now, he wants to pull the ladder up and think that everybody could make it. But most people need a skill. They need a trade. They need an education.
Like going to college is the only way that you're not going to be stupid.
Not the only way.
With you, but I gotta go define umbrage real quick. And I'll be right back.
So this is the
I gotta
thing.
go change my umbrage.
If you have an internet connection, you have an education.
Yeah, true.
If you have a computer and an internet,
But
you have an
I
education.
think what he's referring to.
No, you don't. You have a way to do confirmation bias. That's why more and more people are radicalized. That's why more and more conservatives believe that the Holocaust didn't happen. This is why you're seeing, oh, you need to give me my freedom of speech because, they hold up Hitler in high regard now in some of these off areas of the internet. You're seeing this all the time. They get to lie all the time. They're not actually becoming more informed. They have a lot of information that's misinforming them over and over and over again. Again, if you have an internet connection, you have access. That's true, but we've always had access. Libraries always existed. Experiences always existed. Because of this and 3.2 million subscribers, they think that they're educated by listening to this, when in actuality, the more you listen to this, the more unintelligent you get to be.
Is this disparity, and that eventually is going to cause a problem, as opposed to trying to force everybody to go to college. I think he's looking at the 60-40 and saying there's an issue down the road.
Do you know when my senior
Smartest guy on the panel for saying
I
that.
realized I had completely wasted all the money and time just on hanging out and playing baseball and partying was I spent 4 years in college learning from and about people throughout history who never went to college. What PhD does Tesla have? Like Benjamin Franklin. I'm reading the Federalist paper.
What a freaking point.
That's not a good point. You're going to start talking about people from a couple hundred years ago and see if they had an education. Listen, back then you could fly a kite and, you see a lightning bolt and you could say you invented electricity. And a lot of them did go to school back then. So, that's a ridiculous point to make. And he's going to say, there are billionaires that don't have, let's say, a PhD, but a lot of them do have an education. So we can play that anecdotal game all day long. So I think, how long is this video? This video is pretty long for most people. So I think I'm going to end it here. I think you get my point, is that what I want to do is you need to challenge this stuff. I look through the comments section here, and it's young boy, young male, young man, whatever you want to call them. They all are like, yeah, I'm staying out of college. Only women go to college. Only woke professors. I don't like smart people. I want to be part of the anti-intellectual crowd. And that's bad because that's where fascism is, right? And it used to be, okay, you could be uneducated and make a lot of money because of the unions. But again, the conservatives broke those. So sorry, you don't get that. You don't get to break things that then say you still have them. Sorry, that's not going to way that works. So I think I'm going to end it here because there's a few more minutes of them just meandering, but they're not really answering the question of men being broken alone. And listen, if you're a 30-year-old virgin and you're a man, and you have no thought about being with a woman, you really have to take a look at the psychology there. There is something broken there. There is something wrong. That's not normal human development. And women are outpacing men in every area of life. And instead of trying to entice, maybe inspire men to do better, you're just telling them it's okay. Just be you. It's a good thing that other women didn't tell women that. Women had other women saying, you go out there and you get it. Go, don't depend on a man. Right? Pretty soon we're going to have guys depending on women, or they're going to be depending on themselves, which, a very, very large percentage of them are going to be part of the welfare state. And then they're going to complain about the welfare state when they're the ones putting themselves in a position that they're going to need government help. So hopefully this video wasn't too long for you, but this needed to be said. My name is Joe Peroni. This is the Rise Above Project, and hopefully you can subscribe and tell a friend. as you can see, I do the best to tell the truth. And if anybody wants to comment to have a little bit of a debate with me, I'm all for it. What you heard there was lie after lie after lie after lie equals 3.2 million subscribers equals net worth $150 million. Now you know why people want to keep you stupid and then lie to you so they can get paid a lot of money. Thanks for listening, and I will be back next time. Thank you.